is up, everybody? James Jackson here. Welcome back to the Rebel Loving Scum. Oh man, today we're talking about Mandalorian, season 2, chapter, what are we on? 15. Man, the numbers are confusing. Episode 7, chapter 15, The Believer. This is the review episode of today, this week's Mandalorian. I actually put out a reaction video. It is up on my Patreon page, and the reason why it's on the Patreon page because YouTube is being funny with copyrights and basically being a dick about it. So I decided to put the full reaction video. It's up. It's up on my Patreon page, so definitely go check it out if you want to see the reaction video. I'll leave a link in the description, as well as a link to the Patreon page, so you can definitely check that out. But we're going to talk about today's episode. Also, if you haven't seen my previous video, I did a video about all the new announcements that Star Wars announced last night in their investors call. So I'm so excited for what's to come, especially with the two tie-in series that come with this show, Rangers of the New Republic and Ahsoka. So really looking forward to it, though we're going to have to be waiting a little bit while for those to come out. But, Mandalorian chapter 15, The Believer. Whoo, in this episode, I was already a believer, but this made me more of a believer that the people behind this show know what they're doing. This one was directed by Rick Famuyiwa, who directed Chapter 2, The Child, and Chapter 6, The Prisoners. Now, personally, from Season 1, Rick had a split between me. For first, The Child is probably my third favorite episode of all time with Season 1. Rick Famuyiwa has such a unique way of how he deals with his characters that I really enjoy. Though I will say The Prisoner, which was Chapter 6, which also is tied in with this episode because of Bill Burr's character making a return, Mayfield, and we'll get into him as well. But just in terms of Chapter 6, I felt it was a little bit too much over the top for me personally. I know a lot of people love that show. Me personally, it didn't work for me, but it was I still enjoyed the ride kind of, but I just felt it was a little bit too much on the cartoony side for my take. But that's just me. But The Child is like one of my top 3 favorite episodes of Season 1. And because just of the first 11 minutes of the episode. 12 minutes of the episode, there is literally not a single dialogue that happens on any of the characters on screen. And you get every single thing that's happening. So, to me, that's great directing. And he has anteed up on this episode. This season has been something else because first chapter 1 of this season, episode 1 or chapter 9 was, I started off, I was like, wow, that was my favorite episode of the series. Then episode 3 or chapter 12, which showed Bo-Katan, I was like, okay, I don't know if this is my favorite, but it tied to it. Then the Jedi came out, and that was my all-time favorite of the entire series. 2 episodes ago, the Jedi was my favorite all-time episode of the entire series. Even though I loved last week's episode with Boba Fett, I thought it was a good episode, but I felt like that episode sort of fell a little back in terms of story continuity, and sort of the writing seemed a little off for me. But it was still a great episode to see Boba Fett in action. But this episode is now my favorite episode of the series, because this episode defines what I personally love about Star Wars. So for those of you that may not know about it, one of my all-time favorite Star Wars films is from Disney. It's Rogue One. Rogue One to me is the second greatest Star Wars film of all time, right behind Empire Strikes Back. And the reason why that one I hold so dearly into my heart, because you get so many different perspectives of what we've known from in the Star Wars universe, but in a completely different light, and sometimes in a light that we did not expect from Star Wars. For example, the Rebel Alliance are not fully clean hands. They get their hands dirty a lot of times and do stuff that is very immoral. The Empire, there's people in the Empire that, you know what, they're not bad people, but they're sort of stuck in this predicament where it's like, unfortunately, we got to deal with even the people that are like assholes on the Empire. You still kind of feel for them because of the things they go through from even people higher up on them. But basically, what I'm saying is there's so many different emotions. There's so much gray area. I love movies that challenge our perspective of what we know. What we know is the Jedi. That's why I actually love The Last Jedi. I love it because it does the challenges that I love from like KOTOR 2. That really challenges that the Jedi are the good guys and always been the good guys. And I'm like, no, they kind of have a lot of problems, and those problems are the reasons for their downfall. But I don't want to go into this long. But the point I'm trying to make is this episode is embodiment of everything that I love. New settings, new characters, but things that we are familiar with, we are seen in a different perspective. And this whole thing is about questioning the beliefs and questioning what you know in this universe. And I love it. I love it for that because having something like that makes you question the things that you grew up on, question the things that you know or you supposedly know. It creates drama, and it creates character growth, and we see it over and over and over again in this episode. So basically what I'm trying to say is this episode to me is the best episode of the series. The character developments, Bill Burr's character kills it. Pedro Pascal kills it as well. He still, again, says very little, but it's his actions that show it. We even see a little bit of character development of Cara Dune. There's so much, and other entities in this episode that I just personally believe that it makes you see them in different lights. And when you could do that, I love it. So that's my non-spoiler review. So we're going to get ready to go into the spoiler talk portion. So if you, for some reason, you haven't seen this episode, pause it, go check it out, and then come back here. So I'm going to give you all a second. One of the things I've absolutely loved about this season is the fact that every single place that we've gone to is unique and different and feels like it has its own story and history. And this prison labor camp where they go to get Mayfield is no different. It's one of the things that I absolutely love about this opening thing. It's like it gives this sort of like junkyard vibe, either like the junkyard from Shadows of the Empire, or if you played the more recent game Fallen Order, it's sort of like those. It reminds me a lot of that. I like that, the fact that it's like Bill Burr's character Mayfield. To me, he is sort of, it's because he creates so much charisma in every time you see him on stage. And I love the fact that when he first sees Boba Fett, he's like, I thought you were somebody else. And then he sees Den, he's like, ooh. I just love this interaction of seeing them again. And I love this sort of dirty dozen that they are putting together to go in. And basically they're springing Mayfield. They're not springing him free, but basically they're like, you'll get a more comfortable prison time. Because Cara Dune is like, you're an Imperial scum, and that's it. It's understandable. She's had her whole planet and everybody she known wiped out, so she has no love, no sympathy for Imperials. but they have Grogu, and of course they also tell Mayfield is like, they have Grogu, and it's like, oh, okay, all right, I'll help you out. So when he finds out that they're going after Gideon, he's like, okay, well, I need to go to this planet that has an access point that I can get into. So they agree to go to this planet. The planet is leaving my it's leaving my brain for a second. I can't remember it. But yeah, basically they go over the plan. And first of all, I gotta say, the inside of Slave One's cockpit, I love that we get to see the rotating parts as Boba Fett gets to take off, which is something we never got to see. Again, settings that we don't really get to see that often. We are now seeing it in this series, like inside the cockpit. But yeah, they go over the plan, and they basically tell us like, he sort of is like, okay, we get in. Boba Fett's going to drop it. They're going to go in. He's going to get in the plan, and then Boba Fett's going to pick him up. But of course, nothing is ever easy, and of course it's video game, so we got to do some other things. By the way, I know a lot of people gripe about the video game aspect of this series. I love it. It's like every single one is a different has been a video game. Like episode 1 of this season has been a raid boss. Second episode is like a spider. It's like a spider boss fight. The third episode is like a 4-man dungeon instant flashpoint. The fifth one is sort of like, again, another dungeon instant flashpoint. And then the Jedi, and then like the last one when we got to see Boba Fett with the armor again, it's like horde mode. And then this one is sort of very similar to like RPG, where it's like, and this is the thing, and this is why I love this one a lot the most, because it does. I've been wondering, what does this episode remind me of? Because it was reminding me of something. And now I remember, it reminds me of probably my favorite video game trilogy of all time, and that's Mass Effect. Because it's like you got these group of interesting characters that, if any other situation, they probably wouldn't be getting along and be seeing eye to eye to each other. But there's a bigger threat and a bigger problem we need to deal with. So one person is getting these guys together with all these interesting, unique characters, and basically going in to do this job. And that's basically what the sort of, like, in very, 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 very loose general terms, what Mass Effect is. And there's so many decisions, and there's points where you feel like I can literally see, like, when certain decisions are made or when certain dialogues are happening, I can almost see the dialogue wheel, the choices of like how this can go. And I'm just like, oh God. And that's one of the things I so love, and we'll get into again. Decisions are a big deal about this. But yeah, basically he's like, look, I need to go in, and unfortunately anybody that has any history on the Imperial like intelligence thing, you're going to be detected, and there'll be guns will drawn. So Phoenix is like, well, so Cara Dune's out because clearly she's a Republic Marshal. So she's out. Fennec is basically wanted by the Imperial, so she's out too. He was like, and I love the part when there's like, when they were discussing the plan, it's like, okay, this person's out and this person's out. Like I said, Fennec is out. It's like, okay, yep, everybody's going to be shot. So Cara Dune, you're out. And then we get to Fennec, and basically she's like, yeah, I can't do it. I'm part of the Imperial base, so I'm out. And then he goes to look at Fett, and Fett's like, let's just say I have a very familiar looking face. So ultimately, it ends up being Din Djarin that goes in to do this mission with Mayfield. And it brings up possibly I believe, one of the best, again, Bill Burr's character, because character brings out the best, a lot of characters for different people, because he's that dude that he's going to, like, he has so much charisma, but he'll bust your balls like crazy. So it's like, man, I like you, but you. And that's one of the things I love. And he also has a lot of fun moments. But basically, the plan is that basically they're going to capture these Imperial armors, and basically Din is going to switch into that so he doesn't have to hide his mask. And it creates such an interesting moment when he sees this, and you can see like the embarrassment and the rage, and it's like, I can't believe I'm doing this. And you can tell he's like, he is not happy that he has to go in looking like an Imperial cell, but it's the only way. And look, it's all about getting Baby Groot, and not Baby Groot, Grogu. Wouldn't that be nice? Seeing a collaboration between Baby Groot and Grogu. I mean, they are under Disney, so I guarantee you there's going to be, either if it's a video game or something, that will probably happen. But so yeah, Mayfield and Dan start going in, and this is one of the first beats that really catch my attention, because it's like, this is the part again that Mayfield starts characters really comes about, for the fact that he brings up this point. It's like, look, say what you want, New Republic, the Empire. For some people, it's just the same. It doesn't matter if you have the New Republic or the Empire. It's like, they're all people that are just invading your lands and taking your stuff and making you overseeing you. So, and I love this part because you can clearly see that a lot of the stuff that Mayfield is saying, like, look, you can say all you want about your creed and everything, but hey, you said you wouldn't take your helmet off, but yet here you are an Imperial. You're wearing an Imperial. So is it like you don't take your helmet off, or is it you can't show your face? Because there's a difference. There's so many different parts of this episode, this portion, that really, really shows us, like, yeah, I mean, Mayfield was dropping some serious, serious facts. And he's like, look, you have your beliefs, but so does people from Alderaan. But guess what? Neither of them exist right now. So why are you trying to hold on to something? It's like, instead, just like, look, at some point, everybody says they have a line that they don't cross until they get desperate and they have to cross it. And that whole thing comes to fruition later on in the episode, where it's a point where he then has to choose, but this continues basically what we've been seeing throughout this entire series, is that Din is constantly being challenged by his beliefs. We see it with Bo-Katan. First, Bo-Katan, when she's taking her Mando off. She's clearly a Mandalorian. She's really a Mandalorian, but she's not covering her mask or wearing her mask all the time. We're seeing Boba Fett. Boba Fett takes his helmet off constantly, and throughout this whole season, we've been seeing Din sort of beliefs in how real is the creed, and sort of his beliefs have been questioning throughout, and I'm loving it, because I've been feeling for the longest time that this is the way, no pun intended, but this is the way it's going to propel him to which I believe he would eventually become Mandalore. He will be ruler of the Mandalorians, and because he will eventually get the Darksaber and not Bo-Katan. But yeah, I love the fact that they have this whole dialogue and this whole conversation, and Bill Burr's like, it's like, look, you fight the Empire. They're all doing this. It's like, say what you want, but they're doing the same thing. Some people are just going to be ruled over, and you see that a lot of times, and we're seeing that the New Republic really doesn't have control over everything. And there's this whole portion of the galaxy that we're seeing is like, you still got all these warlords, and even though the Empire is gone, and yeah, the Empire was like, we're not trying to say give credence to space Nazis, but they did have things in check. So, and you see, but at the same time, look, they're still a bunch of assholes. So I love this is the stuff that I love. It's like things that push the gray and make you sort of question, like, how firm is it pure? Is your ideology that pure? Or when push comes to shove, are you willing to bend it? And this leads into another thing that I loved is that they set the tensions. There's so much different tensions. There's an action tension and that comes up when we have to deal with pirates entering and trying to basically blow up. I don't think these are pirates. I think these are like local rebel forces, because there's not like they're trying to take the. By the way, the planet they're on has it's like these radioactive weapons. So basically, Mando has to basically defend because they're trying to blow up the freight that they're riding in, and basically blow it up. And the thing about it is I just love the fact that we get to see this action, and also I love the mortality that we see in Mando, is that because again he doesn't have Beskar this time, so it feels like you've now seen a god that just basically bleeds. And I love the fact that this thing is like we got not only is like he's got to fight these guys off, but he also has to make sure they don't overheat the freight and they blow up. So there's a lot of nice little tensions going on with this scene. And I think this is a nice, great action set piece again. And then we get this little thing where he goes and he starts shooting, and then it's like, so now he doesn't have his weapons, so he has to use useless Imperial scraps. And then at one point during the fight, he even has his they come in and they sort of break his armor, which I thought was interesting. Again, showing that he can't rely on the Beskar anymore. He now has to make sure that he fights. And look, he holds his own. He's a great fighter, and have to say this. He's improved dramatically as a fighter and as a warrior since the first season. Another character development, but it eventually gets to a point where it's like he's beating them time and time again. He's like beating wave after wave, and then another wave comes, and it's just like a whole bunch of them, and it's like all of them carrying bombs, and he's just like, you can see. I hear the Jackie Chan, and these happen throughout the Mandos, where it's like his odds are against him, but he's going to fight it out, and then somebody comes save him. But this time, and again, this whole episode is about flipping what you know and what you believe. This time, it's the Imperials who come and save him, and save them, because obviously it's Imperial freight cart that they're saving. But I love the fact that it's like so many people are like, I never thought I would see the day when an Imperials would come and save us. But that's exactly what happened, and I love that about this whole portion. I love the fact that it was Imperials that came out to save, because again, what I love about this episode, especially when it comes to the Empire, because again, it's showing that like not all these people are bad, because when they get to this compound, they're getting cheers and like it's stuff you would see on the Rebellion side all the time, but you would never see on the Empire. And you're seeing it here, and it opens this whole perspective. Like, you know what? Majority of the people in the Empire, they're not evil douchebags. It's almost like if upper management wasn't such dicks, if the upper management of the Empire wasn't such dicks, they actually would probably be still doing well, and even still having control over the galaxy. Because there's people that are just there like, I'm just here doing a job. I'm just trying to hear and survive. The Empire's just doing that. And it's just, as we'll see later in this episode, it's like, man, the people that were just in the leadership roles are just such evil assholes that basically, like, it's like, ugh. So I love it's this weird feeling like, oh man, I feel weird that I'm cheering that the Empire just saved us, and you're seeing all these normal people on the ground, and then you get to this other portion in the episode, and you're like, yeah, now I remember why I can't stand you. So it's like this push and pull of emotions, and I love that about this. But before we get, so basically what's happened is we come across Mayfield gets ready to go to the console, but he sees like an old superior officer that he served under, and all of a sudden he sees him and he immediately turns away. And the reasons you would think he was like, it's like he's scared he will identify him. He's like, yeah, maybe, but that's not. It's like, but I don't want to risk it. And when you're thinking about it, it's like maybe he's like he did some shit and he like and got punished for it, and it's like, or did something to him, and he's afraid that like he'll respond him and then call forces. No, but that's not what happens. What happens is that this guy made him do some stuff, and a whole bunch of his friends were killed, and we'll get to that. But yeah, I guess we'll get to it in a second. But basically, he says, "I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it." So it's like, look, it's like, okay, then it's like, all right, I'll do it. He's like, look, the thing is, you have to have your face scanned, and this is the point. I was like, this is the point where finally get to say, it's like this man basically went full on hound and said, "Fuck the creed, fuck the creed, fuck the creed. I'm here to get my son back." So he makes the decision to take his mask off, and we see that beautiful, beautiful, handsome man, Pedro Pascal. And he did something. To understand a scene like this would not be as powerful as it was. Like, I was like really choking up because we've had like almost 2 seasons of seeing Din and Grogu together and them growing and bonding, and knowing how much the creed means to Din Djarin's character, and knowing how much it means, how much Grogu means to him, to see this moment where he's like, you know what, I gotta do it. I gotta do it for my son. I gotta do it for my child. And it was such a touching moment. A touching moment that he's willing to throw this lifestyle that he's known for, pretty much all he's known for. He's throwing all in his mind. He's throwing it all away to save this kid, and this was such a touching moment. And then unfortunately that touching moment went to a very tense moment because the officer spots him and it's like, "Excuse me, who are you? What's your TK number?" And it's like, boring conversation anyway. But luckily Mayfield comes in and sort of saves him. It's like, yeah, we call him Brown Eyes. Again, Bill Burr like kills the charisma of Bill Burr. It just works. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. But then the officer says like, "Come on, let's sit down and have a drink," because they were the only freighter that actually made it through these pirates. So it's like, you guys are heroes. Let's have a drink. And then comes the most tense part of the entire episode, where they're sitting at this table, because Mayfield is like pushing us like, "Yeah, let's toast to this event where basically I did, and yeah, a lot of my friends, a lot of innocent people were died." And throughout this whole time, you could see Din like, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" And you see Mayfield's like emotions get more and more involved, and you can see him getting like the rage building up, and it's so tense because kudos to the actor who did this who played the officer, because this the whole time I just seen he's just super slimy and like slimy evil, and it's just so tense, and you can see like Din is like, "Oh, this isn't going to end well," and boy, it does not end well at all. It ends up Mayfield just basically pulling out a gun and just shooting him dead, and which of course sets everything in motion. It's like now they all know, so now they got a whole bunch of stormtroopers and all the people in the facility coming after them. It's like, ugh. But it's like you totally get why he did that, and you're like totally with them. Which again puts a whole perspective. Because just the first time we see him in Chapter 6, he's just this complete asshole. And it's like, he's still comedy charismatic, but this one episode just gives him such a whole different layer, and you understand why he is an ex Imperial sharpshooter. But again, I just love the character development, and it's like he can't. And so all of a sudden they start fighting. They start shooting people, and I love the fact that Bill Burr is like, look, he acknowledges because how important it was to keep that helmet on. Mayfield goes, look, you did what you had to do. Hey, here you go. I never saw your face. It's like basically saying, you know what, I won't tell any, so I will forget your face as a blank. Because he also probably knows Din could probably kill him. He's like, look, technically, no living being to see my face. Well, you wouldn't be. Well, if you're not part of the living, doesn't maybe a little loophole right there. But they get troopers start coming in after them. They break out through the window, which is another tense moment, at least for me. For some people, it may not be tense. For me, it is because I am terrified of heights. I challenge myself to deal with it a lot of times, but I really have a serious phobia of heights personally. So seeing this gigantic waterfall and then the troopers fall, it's like So like how some people have arachnophobias and like the second episode of this season made them go, oh no. That's what that whole part with the waterfall did with me. But Cara Dune and Finnick are basically sniping troopers as they're trying to get away. Boba picks them up, and then we get a return of a famous weapon of Slave One, which is the Sonic Charge or the Sonic Mind, and it does the same. And it's awesome to see it again. It was such a beautiful moment to have. So they all get away. The mission is accomplished, before they get away, Bill Burr takes Mayfield takes a sniper and basically blows up the facility. And like I said, this is the part where I also said like Cara Dune gets a little character growth too, because again, she is like pure blood, like the Empire. She's full on the Empire, the fucking Imperials. But here she sees like this dude like went in and destroyed this whole facility. It's like, okay, you're not as bad as you say you are. So they get in, they rendezvous and meet up again, and then Mayfield is like, all right, go get your kid. I guess I'm going back to prison. And then Kara's like, it's a shame Mayfield died in that facility out there. Basically inclined like, well, technically we could just say you're dead. So basically they let him go free, which is, I think, was a good thing, because hopefully we get to see Bill Burr again, because again his charisma just elevates. It elevates the show, especially when you got somebody as cold as a character as Din Djarin. Seeing Mayfield around him is such a great dynamic. So that we get that they got the coordinates for Moff Gideon's ship, and they set off. And then we get one final scene, and it's on Moff Gideon's ship, and this I love this. I love this scene where Mando basically sends a message to Moff Gideon and basically throws the line that Moff Gideon said to him when he first met Mando, and throws the line back on him. You may think you know what you're in possession of, but you do not. He means more to me than you can possibly ever know. And that whole quote, that whole line is so poetic. It has so much meaning, because it's not just him throwing it back. He really is like, you have no idea how much this child means to me. I just threw away my creed. I threw away my whole way of belief for this child that you took away from me. I am coming for you, and it ain't gonna be pretty. I am getting my child. As somebody pointed out, he basically gave the Liam Neeson, I'm a person of a very specific set of skills that will make a person like me a nightmare for someone like you. Now, I will hunt you, I will find you, and I will kill you. That's basically the message. But I love the fact that he threw the line that Gideon gave to him back to him, basically, and did it. But it had, as like I said, had such grounded and such meaning to it. Like, this episode was amazing. And by the way, this was also written by Rick Famuyiwa, not just directed by him. So directed and written. Man. I hope he writes more Star Wars, because this episode to me is like top notch. And again, this is the best episode of not just this season, but of the series. This is, to me, the best episode. I know a lot of people will disagree with me, but I personally, to me, just in terms of the character growth and what we see and what we've known, and seeing the different gray areas, and again, exploring the galaxy and seeing different things. This is the culmination of what I want to see in the Mandalorian series, in this universe that they're playing, that Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni are playing with. So 10 out of 10. This is, again, best episode of the season. But I would like to know what you guys think. Leave your comments below. Let me know if you guys love this episode. Is it your favorite, or is it another one you have your favorite? Let me know. And if, by the way, I know a lot of you guys are not subscribed to the channel, so go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Get more content here on Star Wars. And until next time, may the Force be with you.